Well, hello, my name is Professor Hesch. I'm a tenured law school professor at Liberty University. I've been here 9 years and have had the privilege of teaching negotiations to my students here for the past 9 years. Prior to coming here, I worked at the U.S. Department of Justice and worked on cases involving fraud against the military or Medicare or various other government agencies. And the cases I worked on settled for a little over $1.2 billion. So I've had a lot of experience with negotiating settlements. And I'm very passionate about negotiations. And you know what? I think all of us in this room should be equally passionate about it, because when you really think about it, negotiations affect everything, every aspect of your life, okay? Everyone faces negotiations. I've been married 25 years. Don't you think I've got a lot of negotiations experience? I must have, just being married. Now, when you think of negotiations, you also think of, a lot of times you think of, it's just what litigators do. No, okay? Any type of law that you would practice, you're going to negotiate. And it's not limited to lawyers as well. This is a topic that should be near and dear to everyone's heart, because any time that you want to reach an agreement or an understanding with another human being, you have to negotiate. And so this is one of those topics that I believe is totally relevant, that we all face. Okay, so tonight, what I want to cover, and I've even entitled this, Negotiations, Tips, Cues, and Clues, how to keep from giving up the farm. Because when you negotiate, you want to get a good deal. Okay, of course the other side wants to get a good deal too, but there are some practical tips that will help you actually even like overnight become a much better negotiator. So I'm going to cover two main topics tonight on ways that you can vastly improve your negotiation techniques in one setting. Okay, the first topic I'm going to cover is bottom lines. And there's a lot of mystery surrounding it, but there's a lot of misinformation and mistakes about what is a bottom line. And the other one, which I think you should have a lot of fun with, this is what cues and clues can you discern or notice about about the other side that'll help you get a better negotiation. Okay, and there's a lot of biblical, references about negotiations, but you don't need to go to the Bible to know that settlement is a good deal. Okay, that settlement is, it's healthy and it's something that we want to do, because that's how we're going to. It doesn't matter if it's negotiations of a court case or buying a used car, you're going to negotiate. So one of the most common questions that I get is, Professor, what should I do about my bottom line? And I said, before we even talk about your bottom line, we really have to define what is a bottom line. A bottom line is what your client can live with. And if you're the client, it's what can you live with? How much were you willing to pay? What are you willing to give up to reach a deal? Okay? And often it's like, even if I'm not happy about it, will I sign the bottom line? Will I buy the car? Will I settle the case? I might not be happy about it, but I'm at least willing to enter into that negotiations. Now, I actually prefer to call it something other than a bottom line, and let me explain. I'm going to call it a reserve point. Okay? Because as soon as I tell my client, ask my client, what's your bottom line? And if they say $100,000, and then I learn some new facts, and I tell them I think the case should sell for $900 or something less than that amount, they say, no, my bottom line is my bottom line. And they get so wedded to it that that's a problem. So if we use a phrase slightly different, called a reserve point, because your bottom line should change based upon new information. Okay? And your negotiation strategy should have 3 different specific range points. So that's why I didn't want to call it bottom line, because I want you to have 3 points, not just a bottom line. Because if you have just a bottom line, that's the amount you're going to get. And do you always want to get just your bottom line, the bare minimum that you'll take rather than litigation? No. So there's 3 range points that I want to discuss tonight. The first one would be the minimum, which most people would call a bottom line. So you do have to at least understand that what is that reserve point, the minimum, that I'll pay, or maximum, depending which side of the coin you're on, that I'm willing to pay and still settle, okay? The next one is the target. This is like, realistically, what could I get? So this is what I'm shooting for, okay? But I don't even want to just stop there, because if I just go after my most realistic one, that's going to affect my offers as well. I'm going to want to, before I begin a single negotiation, have all 3 of these. And the last one would be whether it's, you call it the high or the low, depending which side of the coin you're on. But this would be if everything went really my way, how much could I get? Okay, so I'm thinking like in terms of a plaintiff. How much would I get for either settling this lawsuit? How much would I get for selling this car? What is the high amount? Because if I don't know what that is, how am I going to do my first offer? Because often people do their first offer closer to their minimum or their target, and they never had a shot at getting that, boy, would it be nice if someone were to pay me this amount of money. So we're going to talk about those things. You really want to spend time identifying and wrestling with those 3 points, because if you don't, trust me, you're going to settle at your bottom line every time. Okay? And if you're an attorney, you don't really want to do that for your client. Okay? And I'm thinking in terms of, I don't want to pay more for a used car than I have to. Okay? But I don't want, I want to also do a good job representing my clients. Okay? Now there's a couple problems with bottom lines. Okay, that people run into, whether it's the attorney or your client. One of the mistakes or problems with your bottom line, the first one we'll cover today, is mistake number one is, if I don't set my bottom line correctly, I might miss out on a deal altogether. Because sometimes people set their bottom line so high that they confuse the bottom line with their pie in the sky number. And if you set your bottom line so high, you're never going to reach a settlement. You're going to go to court or not sell the car or whatever that you're trying to negotiate. Okay, and why do people settle or set that bottom line so high? In fact, too high. One is most clients or most people will look through life with rose-colored glasses. Everything, of course, will go 100% my way. There will be no bad facts. There will be no reasons why I shouldn't get as much as I want. So people view things the most favorable to them. Now, the beautiful thing about a lawyer, our role is a counselor. Our role is to impassionately determine things. And so we can guide our clients, and help them understand, and look through a lens other than rose-colored glasses. The second type of client that will be, like stick in the mud is actually stick their head in the sand, okay? They don't want to know the bad facts, okay? They don't want to know that the car's transmission is broken. They just think this car should sell at the high blue book value, even though the transmission is shot, okay? The same thing with litigation. They don't want to know that their client sent a nasty email to someone. They don't want to know that their client, that one of their managers actually made a mistake or made a misrepresentation. They don't want to know. And this would be like the president of the company coming into a meeting and saying something like, "This is our position, and I'm sure none of you have done X, Y, and Z." So which one of their employees can raise their hand and say, "Well, actually, we did that." If the boss says, doesn't allow you to provide information, now I'm in an information vacuum, okay? And so if your client buries their head in the sand, they aren't willing to hear bad facts and even believe that, certain set of circumstances could happen, then they're not going to settle a case, okay? So you need to also, as an attorney, help your client and say, okay, let me read all of the emails. Let me talk to your employees and give them the freedom to be honest, okay? I want to see the other person's point of view. We need to look at that. And the third reason why the settlement might not happen is you don't know all of the facts, okay? And when you file a lawsuit, you still won't know all the facts. You need to learn more facts before you can effectively negotiate. And that's why, and we might cover a little bit later, is you have to ask good questions in negotiation even before you make your first offer. We need information. Information is important. Okay, be willing to ask questions. Be willing to be flexible. Be willing to even adjust your range points based on new information. Okay, one of my favorite proverbs, is the first to present his case seems right until another comes forward and questions him. Okay. You think you're right until you hear the other side's information. When I worked at the Department of Justice, I investigated fraud at 20 different agencies. And we actually gave whistleblower rewards of around 20% for a whistleblower to come forward and tell us, okay, this company is defrauding the government by $100 million. I would like 20% of that, please. Okay? And so I got so used to every whistleblower saying, my case is worth $1 billion. I'm going like, that may be true, but everybody says that. So I would contact, before I brought a lawsuit against a company accusing them of committing fraud against the government, I would contact the company and say, here's some allegations I'm investigating. Do you have a defense? And they'd say, I'm so glad you came and talked to me. And they would give me some legal research, they'd give me documents, and they would have their side of the story. Now, if I had just listened to the whistleblower side of the story without kicking the tires, I would have embarrassed myself a lot. And I didn't really want to do that when I was at the Department of Justice. I wanted to be able to, when I stood there and said, I represent the United States of America, and I'm bringing a lawsuit against this company, and I'm alleging this kind of money, I want that to be accurate. And so I did my homework, okay? And I even loved it because I would post on my door this phrase, in the government office. I posted a scripture in the government office, and all of my colleagues were like, absolutely, that is so true, okay? And so that was my favorite scripture from the practice of law, at least from a negotiation standpoint, okay? Now, the second mistake that we make relating to bottom lines is this. It's the timing. When do you reveal your bottom line? When do you tell the other side your bottom line? And the timing is a big factor, right? It always is. Well, I've got news for you. The word is never. Okay? That's the mistake, is when you tell the other side your bottom line. Okay? Okay? And why do I say that? Why do I say you should never tell your bottom line? Number one, because I never believe you. If you say, this is my bottom line, I'm going like, sure it is. Okay, and then I'm going to make you another kind of offer. You're going to lose credibility if you go around, especially as a lawyer. Now, I understand there's certain settings, if you're selling a used car and you say, this is my bottom line, maybe that works in that setting. But when you're lawyers and you tell another lawyer, this is my bottom line, they're going to chuckle going like, if that really is your bottom line, you're not as good of a lawyer as I thought. But number two is, it's never really your bottom line, okay? And you go like, why is that? Because they just told you new information that you learned today. If they told you the statute of limitations has run, would your bottom line be the same? If they told you that they have your client on video, or an email, trust me, email. You're gonna do a subpoena and get all the emails. People say things in email that they should never say. And I've had so much fun as a litigator because I always subpoena the emails. And at times I would get, I'd print out the emails from the client, from the person that I'm suing, and there'd be emails such as, it almost seems like we're committing fraud. We're like, well, of course it does, because you were committing fraud, okay? And so when I present them, now I have this settlement negotiations with opposing counsel, and I start presenting them the emails from their own clients saying it seems like we're committing fraud, maybe their bottom line's going to change. They may have thought, I'm not paying more than $1 million in this case, and the government wants 10. We're going to go to court. And I start presenting these emails to them. They're going like, oh, that's not going to go well in front of a jury. And so this is why there's no such thing as a bottom line. You may have a reserve point for the moment that you think is the equivalent to a bottom line, but it's always going to be subject to change. I embarrassed myself once pretty good at the Department of Justice. After about 10 years of doing these negotiations, I got a little bored, and I went to the opposing counsel. And I said, it was a really big DC law firm, and I just said, we've been doing this a lot, okay? Wouldn't it be fun if just one time in our career we just said, why don't I just tell you my bottom line, and you say take it or leave it. We either go to court and we never have another settlement discussion meeting. Can we just do that? And of course, the high-powered attorney the other side said, Mr. Hesch, I think that's a great idea. Why don't you tell me your bottom line? And I did. It wasn't a very large case, by government standards. It was like $300,000, and I told him $300,000. And he said, I appreciate that offer. How about $200,000? I said, wait a minute. I mean, he said it in the same breath. It wasn't even like a day later. I said, but I thought we had a deal that we're just going to do bottom lines. He goes, yeah, but until I heard what it was, and that's outside of my range. And so I was like, So the embarrassment was I had to go back to my boss and say, I want to sue them. How come? Just goes for $300,000. I got bigger cases for you. Like, no. My honor's at stake. I told him this was my bottom line. And my boss said, Joel, don't you know there's no such thing as bottom lines? And we ended up selling the case for like $250,000. But a long story short, I even tried that with the vast experience I had. I thought this was the time to do it. It didn't work. Okay. Instead, might say things instead of, I don't have authority to do that, rather than say that's my bottom line. Okay. And even that, okay, is fraught with some perils. But let's switch gears slightly. Don't accidentally give away your bottom line. Okay. What do I mean by that? Words matter. Here's where it's going to be some fun. Okay, how about these words? This is my initial offer, and it's $1 million. As soon as I heard the word initial offer, I'm going like, ooh, I can't wait. What's the next one? You've just told me that, please, this is just a starter figure. Okay, how about this one? This case should settle in the range of $900,000 to $1 million. Now, if they're offering me money, I heard $1 million. I didn't hear $900,000. And I say, so then I always say, thank you for your offer of $1 million. I didn't offer you $1 million. I said, well, actually, you did. And you can never go backwards once you make an offer. Okay, how about this one? My offer is $1 million, firm, take it or leave it. Well, now they got my attention. It's probably pretty close. Okay, and I might test it a little bit at the risk of them storming out if I make another offer. But the point is that you listen to the words. The words will matter. Okay, but I love this one. At this time, I can't do that. Oh, so maybe in 10 minutes you can. Okay, I've never had someone stop, negotiating when they used any words except take it or leave it. Those are the only words that I didn't get a better deal out of. Now, don't forget they're watching you too. So if they say, how about $1 million? And you go, wow, don't expect another counteroffer. If you say, I think we can work with that range. I'm done making any offers. I'm like, well, actually, that was my bottom line. That's the only time I'm going to use bottom line. I'm bluffing. Once I heard that, I know they're going to take it. As soon as they say something, I know they're going to take it. If they say it sounds reasonable, I'm not giving you another penny if you use one of those words, folks. So if you negotiate against me, don't use one of those words, okay, or anyone else, okay? Now, your body language matters too. If I make an offer and they do this, I look at their facial expressions. In fact, when I was at the Department of Justice, I would bring a paralegal with me and I'd say, when I make the offer to opposing counsel, and it was really funny, they'd bring a junior partner and a junior to a junior partner and this associate and that associate, and a paralegal, there's like 15 people across from me. And I said, just watch and write down any reaction. If they were scrambling to write stuff down, if they were, I just wanted to know what their body language was so I could read the tea leaves later, okay? Because they're constantly sending and receiving messages. And you want to, we call it reading the tea leaves. You just leave that phrase alone for the moment. But your counteroffer will be another way in which you give things away. Okay, and this one is really huge. Pay attention to this. If there's a settlement offer of $900,000 by the plaintiff and the defendant counters with $100,000, boy, I love information. You give me that information, like the case will settle for $500,000. You say, man, you're brilliant. How'd you know that? Well, you take 900 plus 100, divide by 2. You just meet them in the middle. Okay, but what happens is, okay, so now I'm wondering what's going to happen next. Well, who goes next with a counteroffer? Are they going to go up by 100,000 or 200 or 400? So whatever their counteroffer is going to send me a signal. If the plaintiff then says 800, well, then I know they're going to meet me at 500. But if they said 700, I'm like, whoa, they're looking to get out of this quick. I'm going to maybe drop by 50,000 because they've made a bigger jump than would have met in the middle. So I know they did not signal we're meeting in the middle. So even paying attention to how far you drop and how far they drop will send a signal. And I live for that stuff. A few more tips. Don't give up too quickly. So don't drop from the 900 to the 700. Test the waters a little bit. Let them be the one dropping by 200 and you drop by 50. Okay, the other thing is once you say 900 and then go to 800, you can't go back to 850. So you got to be purpose. Don't be dropping too fast, but then once you say something, you've already told them you can do that. Ask good questions. Give good justifications to support your offer, and you'll go a long ways. And don't bid against yourself, because my favorite one is a 900. That's too high. Make me another offer. Okay, how about 800? That's still too high. Make me another offer. No, 900. Make me an offer. Well, I gave you 900. Can you please make a counter offer? Oh, okay, 100. Then I'll go to 8. So I always ask the other side, make me a counter offer. Okay, but then also come up with creative solutions. Okay, all right. Now a lot of people say, I don't have a lot of experience. What can I do about that? Be prepared. Know the facts really well. Act confident. They can't tell you that you're a rookie, okay? But pay attention to the cues. Be flexible, okay? And I'm just going to leave you with this one thing. You always tell the truth. There is no room for lying in negotiation. You can get where you need to go doing the techniques that I've outlined here. Never lie, okay? That doesn't mean you can't dodge a question by saying I choose not to answer it, but just don't flat out lie, okay? So there we have it in a nutshell.